If a woman tells you her problems, it doesn't usually mean she wants a solution. In fact, in most situations, it means she wants to uncover something deeper. She wants to feel your presence, not your panic. She wants to evaluate your emotional strength, not your emotional reaction. As a man, when you're confronted with a woman's emotional turmoil, you're not supposed to be another part of the mess. You're supposed to be the anchor in the storm. But the majority of men do not understand this. They believe if a woman begins talking about her emotional problems, it's a call to fix her. No, it's always a test. A test of your masculine foundation, a test of your capacity to stay still in the face of emotional storms. And that's where Stoicism comes into play. The ancient Stoics didn't talk about relationships the way people do now, but they understood the nature of humanity. They understood emotions, control, insight, and discipline. This philosophy is not only about sitting in silence or being unbothered. It's about knowing what needs your reaction and what doesn't. It's about understanding how to respond from strength rather than reacting from panic. And in relationships, this resilience is essential. You see, if a woman opens up to you, she doesn't necessarily need your advice. What she is looking for is your emotional stability. She's trying to find out if you can occupy space without getting weak. Because if you crumble each time she opens up, how can she trust you with life, with kids, with decisions? This video is for the man who wants to transform himself into that unshakable strength. The man who is not tossed around by emotions. The one who understands that being a man is not about control over other people, but control over oneself. In the next 5 parts, we will explore what you need to learn about a woman's emotional character, how to respond like a stoic guy, and how to develop a personal strength that makes you attractive, immovable, and respected. 1. She's not looking for a solution. She's looking for your frame. Many men fall into the same trap whenever a woman starts talking about her issues, and they start fixing them. She says, "My friend betrayed me," and he answers with, "Perhaps you should stop talking to her." She says, "I feel so overwhelmed," and he says, "You should take a break." Sounds helpful, right? But she's not looking for logic. She's looking for presence, a man's frame, your solid masculine personality, and the capacity to sit with her chaos and stay untouched by it. This does not suggest you ignore her. It does not suggest you're emotionally unavailable. It suggests you're emotionally grounded. She's testing your IQ, she's testing your EQ, your emotional character, your internal stability. Think of Marcus Aurelius. A man was emperor of Rome, governing over an empire always at war, tormented by plague, betrayal, and death. And yet, in his private writings, his meditation, you never see him panicked. You never see him emotionally spewing into society. He was surrounded by storms, yet his mind was calm. He wrote, "You have control over your mind, not outside events. Understand this, and you will discover strength." This statement alone could protect the majority of modern men from emotional breakdown, because when your woman comes to you with her emotional turmoil, you are the outside event. And how you respond defines whether she feels secure or uncomfortable. You don't need to become a therapy professional. You need to build a solid foundation. She's not coming to you for solutions, she's coming to you because she's sinking in emotion, and she wants to find out if you will sink with her or stand strong. That's why women sometimes lose respect for guys who are excessively eager to solve everything. When you jump into a solutions attitude, you're making her feel that she's an issue to be solved, not someone who needs to be understood. That's when many relationships start to end, not because of illicit behavior, not because of deception, but because the guy becomes emotionally reactive rather than emotionally reliable. 2. The strength to listen without losing yourself. A woman will usually open up to you when she's having emotional issues. But what she truly wants, what she's testing, is your capacity to hear her without becoming her. Let it sink in. She's not seeking a sponge for absorbing her sorrow. She's not looking for a mirror to reflect her mess. She's looking for a wall, not cold, just solid. Something she can rely on, something that will not collapse when leaned on. But many men nowadays don't comprehend this. They mistake compassion for over-involvement. They mistake connection with emotional attachment. And gradually, they stop being men and start being emotional crutches. That's when respect fades. That's when attraction disappears. That's when she began looking somewhere for strength, even if she doesn't fully realize it. When you listen to a woman, don't lose your foundation. Don't be dragged into her emotional mindset. Because women are emotional creatures by nature, they move through their environment emotionally. Their emotional reality shifts by the hour. But your role as a guy isn't to follow that. It's to stay grounded so she has something reliable to return to. Seneca once said, "We suffer more frequently in imagination than in truth." That's what occurs when men excessively identify with a woman's sorrow. You begin to live in her emotional narrative. You begin imagining agony that is not yours. You start reacting to her emotion as if it's your responsibility to remedy it or feel it, and you start to abandon yourself in the name of being there for her. That's not Stoicism. That's weakness disguised as empathy. Real Stoicism is having the capacity to be fully present, to hear what she's saying, to understand it, to sympathize, but not to drown in it. That's what differentiates the grounded man from the emotional boy. One reacts, and the other reflects. One absorbs her turmoil, the other contains it. You have to learn how to build a shield around your mind when she's sinking emotionally, not because her emotions are wrong, not because she's bad, but because it's your obligation to safeguard your peace of mind. You're no good to her if you lose yourself trying to save her. Imagine a storm in the sea. She is the ocean, unpredictable, chaotic, sometimes tranquil, sometimes stormy. You are the mountain coming out of the sea, still grounded and unmoved. When she crashes against you emotionally, she's not looking for the mountain to collapse. 3. Emotional control is masculine power. Let's be honest. In relationships, a man's greatest asset is not his appearance, not his wealth, not even his charisma. It's his emotional control. That's the foundation. That's what differentiates between being just another man she dates and being the man she values for life. Women subconsciously know this. That's why they talk to you about their issues, not to dump emotional scraps, not to spoil your day, but to find out what you are made of. She is asking you without words, "Can you deal with this?" And the way you react reveals everything about your masculinity. When she's opening up, she doesn't need you to panic. She isn't expecting you to get irritated, begin to scream, or shut down like a weak man. She needs to feel that, regardless of what's happening around you, you remain calm. You're present. You're still in charge of yourself. That's authentic power, not force but control over your own emotions. Because if you cannot control your emotions, another person will always be able to control you, particularly a woman who's emotionally driven. And if she can control your emotions, you're no longer the man in the relationship. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have to build up your life action by action and be satisfied if each one accomplishes its objective as far as possible. And nobody can protect you from this." What he meant was clear: your peace of mind is your obligation. Nobody can take it unless you give it away. In the same way, your woman's emotional turmoil only has influence over you if you allow it. But if you become emotionally disciplined, she can throw anything at you, and it won't shatter your foundation. That's what differentiates leaders from followers. And in a relationship, even when she never says it, she wants to follow your lead. 4. Stop looking for validation. She's testing your inner value. One of the terrible mistakes men make if a woman opens up to them is believing they need to act emotionally in order to win her love. They try to be the man who often says the correct thing, agrees with her feelings, mirrors her emotional mood, and becomes a therapy professional in the belief that she'll see them as supportive. But here's the brutal reality: most of the time, whenever a woman opens up about her challenges, she's not looking for validation, and she's certainly not looking to give you validation. She's trying to find out if you already have inner value. She's trying to find out if you'll back down or if you'll stay grounded. That's the secret nobody tells you. The more emotionally dramatic you are, the less she respects you. The more you need her emotional validation, the less strong you look. And it's not because she's disrespectful. It's because women aren't drawn to men who beg for emotional attention. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish." What exactly does that mean in a relationship dynamic? It means you need to stop chasing her emotional validation. You might even be accused of not caring. But if you remain grounded and focused without having to be validated, you're showing her something unique, a man who isn't controlled by what she thinks in the moment. That makes you dangerous in the best way. That makes you strong because now you're not performing, you're standing. And in the modern society of approval-hungry men, a man who doesn't flinch when he's misunderstood is attractive. 5. Her emotions are not your responsibility. Your response is. One of the easiest ways a man loses his value in a relationship is by thinking that he's accountable for how a woman feels. He begins trying to control her emotions. He begins to walk on eggshells. He becomes scared of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, or provoking the wrong emotion. So rather than leading, he reacts. Rather than standing strong, he adjusts frequently. And with time, he becomes less of a man and more of a puppet. But here's the reality, her emotions are hers. They're not yours to take care of. They're not yours to carry. You can care without carrying. You can empathize without absorbing. And most significantly, you can stay grounded when she's in emotional turmoil. That's your obligation. That's the masculine burden, not to make her fulfilled, but to remain grounded regardless of how she feels. Epictetus once said, "We aren't bothered by events, but by the views we take of them." A woman's emotions are not events. They are manifestations of her internal existence. Your responsibility is not to interpret them as threats or take them personally. Your responsibility is to understand that emotions are fleeting. They disappear. They leave. They change. If you make every emotional storm about you, you'll continually live in fear of saying the wrong statement or triggering the next storm. That's not power. That's slavery.